My name is Monica Rojas. I'm 28 years old, and for the last 2.5 years, I thought I understood what love looked like, or at least I thought I understood what it looked like with my boyfriend, Steven. We didn't live together. We had once talked about maybe taking that step next year. But honestly, something in me had been tightening, twisting, warning me that something wasn't right. I didn't want to admit it at first. It felt like betraying him to even think it. But intuition has a strange way of whispering before it screams. For months now, little things had been shifting. Steven's phone started living face down on tables even when we were alone. His notifications stopped lighting up. Eventually, he began closing apps the moment I walked into the room, like he was putting away something fragile. He'd never been secretive before. Defensive maybe when he felt insecure, but not secretive. Not like this. He'd also started working late 3, sometimes 4 times a week. He said deadlines were brutal. His team was understaffed. His boss was pushing everyone harder than usual. Except, he'd never once mentioned anything about deadlines before, or staffing issues, or stress. It came out of nowhere, and every time I asked questions, normal questions, he would lash out with a level of irritation that didn't match the situation. And then there was the makeup. I don't mean mine, I mean hers. His female coworker, the one he suddenly started mentioning often, and then abruptly never mentioned again. The one whose name popped up in ways that felt rehearsed, too casual, too conveniently placed into a story about office lunches or brainstorming sessions. The one with the laugh he once described as annoying but kinda cute before quickly correcting himself and saying he didn't mean cute that way. Yeah, that one. I ignored the signs longer than I should have. Maybe because I loved him. Maybe because it's easier to stay in denial than to face the truth. Or maybe because I thought stupidly that love could be maintained simply by loving harder. But 3 weeks before everything exploded, fate stepped in. Steven left his laptop open on my couch while he took a shower. Normally, this wouldn't mean anything. I wasn't the type to snoop. I respected boundaries, trusted him. But a notification popped up across the screen. The test is this weekend. We'll see how she reacts. It was from a group chat. I shouldn't have clicked. I know that. But the preview alone was enough to make my heart pound with the kind of dread you feel when you realize the house you live in has been quietly shifting its foundation for years. One tap, one window, one thread that unraveled everything. His 2 best friends, both women, were discussing a plan they'd been crafting for weeks. A test. A fake breakup test. They wanted to see if I would tearfully beg Steven to stay. If I did, I passed. If I didn't, I was clearly not invested enough in him, and he should rethink the relationship before he wastes more time. Their words, not mine. But that wasn't even the worst part. Scrolling up, I found messages from 2 months earlier. Steven venting about how a coworker, yes, her, had been flirting with him. Except his tone didn't read like rejection. It read like fascination, like validation, like desire simmering under the surface. The screenshots between them were far worse. Her complimenting his shirts, him telling her she made work more fun, her calling him handsome with heart emojis, him saying he thought about her more than he should. I stared at the messages until my eyes blurred. My heart didn't break that night. It eroded, slowly, quietly, the way cliffs fall apart from the inside decades before the first rock ever drops. I didn't confront him, not then. I needed time. I needed to be sure. I needed to breathe through 3 weeks of pretending everything was fine while my chest felt like a fractured ribcage holding in something sharp. So when the night of the test came, I wasn't blindsided. I was ready in a way they couldn't have imagined. I arrived at his apartment expecting a normal evening takeout, a show laughter woven into familiar routines. His 2 best friends were already there. That wasn't unusual. They often hung out before going out together. But the way they looked at me tonight felt different. Too focused. Too alert, like they were waiting for something. I sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone, pretending not to notice the glances they exchanged. Steven muted the TV. The room fell silent. Too silent. "We need to talk," he said. His voice wasn't natural. It was stiff rehearsed, like someone practicing a breakup speech in a bathroom mirror. One friend subtly lifted her phone, angled toward me, recording. The other leaned forward like she was courtside at a championship game. I knew exactly what was happening. I forced my expression to remain neutral. "Okay," I said slowly. "What's going on?" Steven inhaled dramatically, like this was the most difficult moment of his life. "I've been thinking a lot, and I think we should break up. It's over. The silence afterward felt staged, manufactured, waiting for my reaction. His friends stared at me, expectant, hungry, prepared to judge my humanity based on whether I crumbled on command. What they didn't know was that I had already spent 3 weeks crying silently in the shower. 3 weeks losing sleep, 3 weeks mourning the relationship they were now treating like a science experiment. So instead of falling apart, I exhaled a breath I'd been holding far too long. "Oh," I said softly. Then, with a relief so genuine it startled even me. "Thank God. Finally." Stephen's eyebrows shot up. His friends froze. I looked straight into his eyes. "Now," I said, my voice steady, "I can stop pretending I don't know about you and your coworker." The effect was instant. His friends' faces drained of color. One dropped her phone. Stephen's mouth fell open, like he forgot how to breathe. Their little test shattered in an instant, their script burned to ash. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt free. For the first 4 days after I walked out of Stephen's apartment, my phone turned into a battlefield. It started that same night. 3 missed calls, then 5, then 9. Voicemails piling up while I sat in bed staring at my ceiling, letting the quiet settle into my bones. By morning, I had 14 new messages from numbers I didn't recognize, all variations of Stephen's voice. Panicked, angry, confused, desperate, like he was cycling through emotions faster than his brain could regulate them. I didn't listen to a single one. Not then, not after the 15th call, not after the 20th. By the end of day 4, I had blocked 15 numbers. Stephen's phone, his work phone, his friends' phones, random burner-like numbers that were definitely borrowed or begged for. It was like watching a man claw through walls he built himself. But the most disturbing voicemails came from his 2 best friends, the same ones who orchestrated the breakup test. One message was high-pitched and frantic. "You completely misunderstood the test. It was supposed to show how much Stephen means to you. You ruined everything." Another one was cold, clipped, like she was reading from a therapist's TikTok script. "Monica, your reaction indicates emotional detachment and suppressed avoidance patterns. You should reflect on why you shut down instead of fighting for him." 12 paragraphs, I counted. 12. They spoke like they were analyzing me for a science fair project instead of acknowledging the betrayal they had engineered. Stephen, meanwhile, left messages that swung between heartbreak and fury. "Please just talk to me." Followed by, "I deserve an explanation. You blindsided me." Followed by, "If you don't call me back, you're proving I never meant anything to you." Followed by, "Stop being dramatic. It was a harmless test." Harmless. The word sat in my stomach like a stone. But nothing prepared me for the message I finally forced myself to listen to late on day 3, mostly because the notifications were driving me insane. It was Stephen's voice trembling. "I know you saw something you misunderstood. Nothing happened with her. It was just talking. You're overreacting." My jaw tightened. Emotional cheating is still cheating, whether or not it ends in a bedroom. But he didn't want accountability. He wanted justification. I blocked that number too. The escalation didn't stop there. On day 4, around 8 p.m., I heard a soft knock outside my apartment door. Not the polite kind, not the confident kind, the timid kind people use when they want to slip into your space without alarming you. I looked through the peephole. Stephen. His eyes were swollen like he hadn't slept. His hair was messy, his clothes wrinkled. He looked smaller, like someone had drained the life out of him. I didn't open the door. He pressed his forehead against it. "Monica, please, 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes to explain. That's all I'm asking." I leaned my shoulder against the door, not to be close to him, but to reinforce that barrier between us. "There's nothing to explain," I said quietly. "Go home." He shook his head, voice cracking. "No. Not until you talk to me for real. Not until you hear my side. You owe me that." A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. "I don't owe you anything, Stephen." He slid down the door until he was sitting on the floor of the hallway. "I'm not leaving," he said. "Not until you let me fix this." I closed my eyes and sighed. My building had strict rules about non-residents loitering in hallways. I tried once more. "Stephen, please leave." "No." I walked away from the door, grabbed my phone, and called building security. Within 15 minutes, 2 uniformed officers were escorting him out. Through the crack under the door, I could hear his voice growing frantic. "She's my girlfriend. This is a misunderstanding. I'm not leaving. Let go of me." "She asked you to leave, sir. Hallways must stay clear." They eventually dragged him out of the building. He didn't resist physically, but his voice broke into raw, aching pleas that echoed down the stairwell. I didn't cry. I didn't even shake. I felt nothing, just tired. The next morning, my phone rang again. Another unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello. A familiar warm voice responded. Sweetheart, Stephen's mother. I stiffened. She had always been kind to me, always welcoming. She sounded calm now, too calm. I heard what happened between you and Stephen, she said gently. I'm so sorry he put you through that silly breakup test. It was immature on his part. My shoulders softened slightly. Maybe she would be reasonable. But she continued, her tone shifting ever so slightly. You must understand he's devastated. He hasn't slept, he hasn't eaten, he made a mistake, and he regrets it. You two have something real, Monica. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive him? I inhaled slowly. Her kindness carried expectations. Ma'am. With respect, I said. Stephen didn't just make a mistake. He was flirting with a coworker and planning a test to manipulate my emotions. Her voice sharpened instantly. He did not cheat. He told us everything. It was just texting. And you of all people should understand that relationships require effort. Real women don't walk away at the first sign of trouble. I blinked. Real women. Ah, there it was. He needs you, she pressed on. You can't abandon him when he's at his lowest. I closed my eyes. I'm not abandoning him, I said. I'm removing myself from a toxic situation he created. A long, icy silence followed. Then she spoke, her voice cold enough to frost glass. I always thought you were a good woman. But walking out on him like this, heartless, truly heartless, you'll regret it. I hung up. 5 minutes later, a new text came from an unrecognized number. You're going to regret this. No name, no context, just the threat. I stared at the words for a long time, a prickle crawling across my skin. Not fear, recognition. This wasn't over, not even close. The morning after Stephen's mother sent that anonymous threat, I woke to the sound of my apartment buzzer blaring nonstop. Not a polite 2-second buzz. A full press, the kind people do when they're trying to force you awake out of spite. For the first few seconds, I thought it was an alarm or a fire drill. But then I heard a familiar voice shouting through the speaker. Monica, I know you're home. We need to talk. Stephen's best friend, the ringleader of the breakup test, the self-appointed relationship scientist. I didn't even get out of bed. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the dull throb of exhaustion run through my body like a pulse. She buzzed again, and again, and again. Finally, after nearly 30 seconds of continuous buzzing, she stopped. I heard footsteps. She was probably waiting outside the door instead. I dragged myself up, walked to the peephole, and peeked. No one. For a moment, I felt relief, until I opened my curtains to let in some morning light and froze. She was leaning on my car in the parking lot downstairs, arms folded, face twisted with anger. I stepped back, hands trembling not in fear, but in sheer disbelief. This was escalation. Calculated escalation. I showered, dressed, and prepared to leave for work anyway. I wasn't letting anyone bully me into house arrest. But when I walked outside 30 minutes later and headed toward my car, she lifted her chin and stepped directly into my path. Good morning, I said coolly, refusing to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. Don't pretend you don't know why I'm here, she snapped. I unlocked my car with the remote, but she stood firmly in front of the driver's door. You know she tried to hurt herself, right, because of you. The words were a weapon, sharp, aimed. I stopped immediately. Is she okay? I asked, because no matter what happened, I wasn't heartless. Her eyes flashed with triumph like she'd found the button she wanted. Oh, now you care, she said with vicious sarcasm. Now you're concerned. Is she okay? I repeated, colder now. She shrugged carelessly. She's fine. It wasn't serious. But she hasn't been eating or sleeping. She had to take time off work. This is destroying her life, and you're out here acting like nothing happened. I stared at her, hard. If Stephen is struggling with his mental health, I said, then he needs professional support. Not me. Especially after what he did. She scoffed. He didn't cheat on you. He just talked to someone, and you're punishing him for it. I'm not punishing him, I said. I'm choosing myself. My voice didn't waver. Hers did. You're heartless, she hissed. A real girlfriend would have fought for him. You just shut down like a robot. What is wrong with you? My jaw clenched. What's wrong, I said evenly, is that you thought staging a breakup to manipulate my emotions was a good idea. What's wrong is you encouraged him to flirt behind my back. What's wrong is you think love is something that needs to be tested. She opened and closed her mouth like she wanted to fire back, but couldn't find ammunition. I stepped around her, got into my car, and closed the door. She didn't chase me. She didn't shout. She just stood there, watching me leave. Her face twisted with something that looked very much like fear. I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. 2 days later, my phone buzzed during my lunch break. It was a number from my building's management office. Ms. Rojas, my landlord, said, his tone polite but uneasy. We received an anonymous complaint about your apartment. My stomach dropped. Anonymous? What kind of complaint? Well, he hesitated, that you've been running some sort of illegal business from your unit. Loud noises at all hours, high foot traffic, suspicious visitors. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because disbelief was the only thing keeping me from screaming. Sir, I live alone. I barely have visitors. I know, he said quickly. You've been a wonderful tenant. This seems unfounded, but building policy requires me to follow up. I exhaled slowly. I'm dealing with a messy breakup, I said. Someone's trying to cause problems for me. He sighed. I suspected something like that. Don't worry, I'll document this as harassment. I thanked him, hung up, and sat there in the break room, staring at my sandwich as nausea twisted in my stomach. This wasn't just drama anymore, it was targeted sabotage. That evening, I received a flood of texts from mutual friends. People I hadn't spoken to in months. People who had taken Stephen's side instantly without question. What happened between you and Stephen? He said you were stalking him. You went through his laptop. Seriously. He says you emotionally abused him for years. I read every message twice, my pulse pounding, my hands shaking, with a mixture of rage and humiliation. He wasn't just reimagining the story. He was reinventing himself as a victim. The most painful message came from a friend who used to be close to both of us. He said you controlled him, monitored him, made him feel unsafe. Monica, that's not okay. If you were unhappy, you could have just talked to him. I didn't answer. There was no point. Once someone believes a lie, truth often sounds like manipulation. But the absolute breaking point came from an unexpected source. A coworker of mine pulled me aside before the end of the day. Hey, she said hesitantly. I didn't know how to bring this up, but I know someone at Stephen's office, and she said he's been telling people he's scared of you. Those words hit different, harder, sicker. He said what? That he's afraid you'll show up at his work, that you're unstable, that you've been trying to hack his accounts. I had to sit down. My legs wouldn't hold me. He was building a paper trail, positioning himself as the victim, preparing what a case, a preemptive strike, protection from consequences. My vision blurred for a moment, not from tears, from the sudden realization that if I didn't protect myself, things could get much, much worse. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, heart-pounding hands steady with purpose. I started writing. Dates, times, screenshots, voicemails, buzz logs, parking lot confrontations, anonymous complaints, everything. Then I opened my email and contacted an attorney. By morning, I had my consultation. By noon, the lawyer confirmed what I already knew. I had more than enough for a harassment case. And by the end of the day, I had one unshakable thought pulsing through me. I had spent weeks letting everyone else control the narrative, but not anymore. The morning after my attorney finished reviewing everything, I received a PDF copy of the cease and desist letter. My name printed at the top, Stephen's name, and his two best friends listed as recipients, and a tone so sharp it could have sliced concrete. Reading it felt like exhaling after weeks underwater. It spelled out every instance of harassment, every attempted contact, every boundary crossed, every malicious action. It demanded they stop immediately, or legal action would follow. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt a flicker of power return to my chest. I signed it electronically. My attorney sent it out by certified mail, and then he said something that changed my entire strategy. You've been playing defense long enough. It's time to go on offense. He didn't mean revenge. He meant protection. He meant leverage. Because harassment doesn't stop when you ask it to. It stops when continuing becomes too dangerous for them. And that's when I remembered something important, something Stephen never expected me to act on. The coworker, the married woman he'd been emotionally entangled with. I still had the screenshots from his laptop, messages filled with flirtation confessions, planning drinks that I never heard about. Once she'd even written, "Your girlfriend doesn't appreciate you the way I do." And he responded with, "She doesn't get me the way you do." Seeing it had felt like swallowing broken glass. But now it was information. Information that could stop Stephen faster than any block button. I didn't want to destroy anyone's marriage. I wasn't going to tell her husband. I wasn't going to send anything to HR. But I needed her to be scared enough to intervene, to force Stephen to back off, to shut this down before he escalated to something irreversible. So I searched online, scrolling through her LinkedIn page, her company site, her public portfolio. Her contact information wasn't hard to find. She was very online. At 6:15 p.m., I sat on my couch, hands steady, heart steady, clarity, sharp as a blade. I dialed her number. Hello? Her voice was bright, casual, unsuspecting. Hi, I said quietly. You don't know me. I'm Monica Rojas, Steven's ex-girlfriend. Silence, and then a small, breathy, terrified noise. Oh, her voice dropped 2 full octaves. Why are you calling me? Because I want you to know, I said evenly, that I have screenshots of every message you sent him, and every message he sent you, including the ones where you talked about meeting behind your husband's back. Dead. Silence. You could have heard her heartbeat if you listened hard enough. I'm not calling to threaten you, I continued. I'm not calling to expose you. I'm not calling to ruin your life. I paused, letting her breathe. I'm calling to tell you that Steven and his friends have been harassing me relentlessly, showing up at my building, filing false complaints, spreading rumors. He even told his office I'm stalking him. She inhaled sharply. I didn't know he was doing all that. Of course you didn't, I said, but now you do. I leaned back, letting the calm settle into my voice like frost. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell him to stop. Completely. No more calls. No more texts. No more showing up. No more third-party messages. No more attempts to ruin my reputation. Nothing. She swallowed loudly into the phone. And if he doesn't, she whispered. Then I said those screenshots might end up in places you and he don't want them. HR, friends, family, or your husband. A strangled noise escaped her throat. That's blackmail. No, I said, my tone smooth. It's self-defense. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for silence. That's it. I want him to leave me alone. Forever. A quiet, shaky exhale. I'll talk to him, she said. I'll make him stop. You need to understand something, I added. I don't want to escalate this. I just want peace. I know, she whispered. I'll handle it. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had taken control of my own story again. We hung up. I stared at my phone, feeling the adrenaline slowly drain from my veins. 24 hours later, Steven's constant messages and surprise visits vanished like they'd never existed. No calls, no texts, no buzzing at my door, no new fake numbers, no parking lot confrontations, no smear texts from his friends. The quiet was surreal, almost suspicious. But the universe wasn't done. 2 days after the silence began, my attorney forwarded me a letter from another law office, Steven's lawyer. A laugh sharp and disbelieving escaped my chest as I read it. The demands were ridiculous. $5,000 in compensation for emotional distress I allegedly caused him. A written apology admitting I had defamed him. Permanent deletion of all screenshots, messages, and documentation I had collected. A formal promise never to contact his coworker again. It was so delusional, it almost felt like satire. My lawyer's response, devastating. He outlined everything. The harassment Steven had inflicted on me. The false complaint to my landlord. The stalking and doxing behavior. The documented emotional affair. The fact that truth is an absolute defense against defamation. The fact that discovery in a lawsuit would place all of Steven's messages, including those with his coworker, into the public record. The extreme likelihood that Steven would end up paying my legal fees if he pursued anything. His lawyer went silent immediately. We never heard from them again. But the true unraveling didn't happen to me. It happened to them. 2 days later, I got a message from my coworker, the one who knew someone at Steven's office. Monica, I don't know what you did, but something major happened at Steven's job. Apparently, the female coworker, the one I had called, broke down in the middle of the office. She confronted Steven loudly, accused him of dragging her into his mess, accused him of throwing her under the bus to save himself, accused him of risking her marriage and career. In front of everyone. HR got involved immediately. The investigation was swift and brutal. Because this wasn't Steven's first emotional entanglement at work. He had warnings. He had complaints. He had a pattern. He was fired within days. The coworker wasn't fired, but she was placed on a performance improvement plan. Humiliated. Ostracized. Limping through the fallout of choices they both made. Their friend group fractured. One friend blocked me on everything, despite receiving a legal warning from my lawyer. Steven's mother told acquaintances that I ruined her baby's life. But for the first time in months, none of it touched me. I was free. Silence. Not the tense kind. Not the kind that comes before a storm. But the rare, delicate kind you don't realize you've been craving until it finally arrives. That was my life for the first full week after Steven lost his job. No unexpected knocks at my door. No buzzing intercoms at dawn. No cars idling outside my building. No anonymous numbers lighting up my phone. Just peace. A foreign, almost luxurious peace, settling into the corners of my apartment like sunlight through lace curtains. I didn't check social media. I didn't ask about him. I didn't search for updates. But the world has a way of delivering truth even when you don't go looking for it. 3 days into the silence, my coworker approached me in the break room with a hesitant expression. "Monica, you didn't hear this from me," she said quietly, closing the door behind us, but Stephen moved back in with his mother. I blinked. It wasn't surprising, but the image of him, a grown man returning home after imploding his life, it hit differently. "He's unemployed now," she continued softly. "Apparently the HR investigation was messy, and that coworker of his, her marriage, is hanging by a thread." I leaned against the counter, letting her words settle. "Her husband found out?" I asked. "No," she said. "Not from you." But she confessed. She told him everything. I inhaled slow and steady. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel revenge satisfied. I felt tired, in that deep bone-heavy way you feel after carrying something far too long. "Are they separating?" I asked quietly. "Not officially," she said. "But they're sleeping in separate rooms. Counseling. It's bad." I nodded, not because I felt responsible, but because I felt human. What Stephen and his coworker did wasn't just about me. It rippled outward, into her life, her marriage, her home. Actions always ripple. People always forget that. By the end of the week, I received another unexpected update, this time from a mutual friend I'd always respected, someone who wasn't part of Stephen's inner circle of chaos. She texted me, "You probably don't care anymore, but Stephen's friends turned on each other." I stared at the message, not with satisfaction, but with a strange, reflective detachment. According to her, the two women who orchestrated the breakup test were now barely speaking. They were blaming each other for the plan going wrong, for letting Monica slip through their fingers, for not coaching Stephen better. Yes, they said that. They spoke like they were directors of a failed play, like I was a poorly cast actress who refused to follow the script. If she had reacted the way she was supposed to, she ruined everything. She sabotaged it. I didn't reply to the screenshots my mutual friend sent, but I read each message slowly, carefully, and a calm realization settled into me like warm water. People who treat relationships like experiments always end up bewildered by real emotions. Stephen wasn't the only person who had been manipulating me. He had help. He had enablers. He had architects behind him, whispering toxic theories dressed up as empowerment. And now they were unraveling, without me even lifting a finger. Later that same day, I received a call from a number I recognized immediately, Stephen's mother. I let it go to voicemail. An hour later, curiosity got the better of me, and I listened. Her voice was low, wounded, sharp around the edges. "Monica," she began, "I don't know what poisonous lies you've been spreading, but my son is broken. Broken. And you sit there acting like some perfect angel. I always knew there was something wrong with you. You tricked us. You tricked him." I hit pause. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. Her anger was just noise. Her denial was just projection. Her accusations were just smoke covering the ruin she didn't want to face. People like her never blame the source of the fire. They blame whoever noticed the flames. I deleted the voicemail. That evening, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea, watching dusk settle over the city. The sky faded from gold to rose to deep navy, and the air carried that early night quiet that feels almost sacred. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to feel everything. The grief, the anger, the betrayal, the relief. Most people think breakups are a clean-cut, sharp, sudden final. But the truth is, they're more like healing from a fracture. You don't realize how deep the break goes until you're finally out of the cast and trying to walk again. I thought about Stephen. Not the man he became at the end, frantic, manipulative, cruel, but the man I loved in the beginning. The soft laughs, the late-night drives, the way he used to look at me like I was something he found by luck. Those moments were real, but the foundation beneath them was already cracked. And love built on cracks eventually collapses. I spent more time with my sister in those days, a woman who didn't sugarcoat anything and would have fought the entire world for me with chipped nail polish and unmatched shoes. She checked on me constantly, sent memes at 2 a.m., dropped off meals I didn't ask for, and told me every day, "You're not crazy, you're not cold, you're not wrong, you got out." My friends, the real ones, said the same. Not one of them questioned why I left. Not one of them said I should have fought for him. Not one of them minimized my pain. Instead, they said, "God, Monica, you must be exhausted. Are you okay? Like, actually okay? That is insane. I'm so glad you're safe." Hearing their voices reminded me of something I had forgotten while drowning. I wasn't alone. I was supported. I was believed. And that mattered more than anything Stephen's world tried to weaponize against me. It didn't mean I wasn't sad. Some nights, lying in bed, I would feel grief sneak in, quiet but heavy. I wasn't grieving him. I was grieving the version of myself who loved him without fear. I was grieving the future I thought we were building. I was grieving the naivety that once felt safe. But even in those moments, I felt stronger than I had in months. Because leaving wasn't a moment of weakness. It was the first act of self-respect I had given myself in far too long. 3 weeks after everything ended, I opened my laptop and started writing again. Not a report, not evidence, not a timeline. A message. Not to Stephen, not to his friends, not to his mother. To the version of me who needed to hear the words I wish someone had told me earlier. When someone tests your love, it's because they don't trust it. When someone seeks validation elsewhere, it's because they don't value what they already have. And when someone makes you feel like you have to earn their affection, that isn't love. It's control dressed as vulnerability. Leaving isn't failing. Walking away isn't cruel. Protecting your heart isn't selfish. It's survival, and sometimes it's salvation. I closed my laptop and smiled softly to myself, feeling an unfamiliar but welcome warmth spread through my chest. Peace. Real peace. No noise, no chaos, no tests, no lies. Just freedom.